everybody. It's so nice to be back with you. I've been working from home, and I was telling Marisa today, it's the first time I've been back in the office in 4 months. So for those of you that haven't seen me in a while or haven't seen me before, my name is Michelle Headrick AIFD, and I'm the lead instructor here at the school. So I'm really happy to play flowers today. And I say play because any day that I'm working with flowers isn't work, it's fun. So let's get the business out of the way first. If you're on your phone, turn it sideways, you'll get a larger picture. If you want to make comments and use emoji, those are down in the bottom by that little smiley face. If you're on Facebook and on YouTube, same location. What else am I forgetting on technical stuff, Marisa?
Put in your tulips.
Yes, put in your tulips. If you are a member of the Tulip Tribe, please put in your tulip. And I have an extra request. If you own a horse, put the horse emoji in there so we can see who our horsemen and horsewomen are that are with us today. And if you have ever put flowers on a horse, and I know a couple of you have, I've seen some pictures and they look great, please put the horse emoji in there as well. Then we can check them out later in our free time. So in case you haven't guessed, or you didn't see some of the bulletins, today we're talking about flowers for horses, particularly in parades, equestrian courts. They could be rodeo courts, they could be fair courts, they could also just be costumed horses. Well, some of the horses are in costumes, the people are in costumes, but basically the mechanics and some behind the scenes tips and techniques for getting those flowers to stay. A horse weighs a ton or more. So think of the angriest bride you could possibly come up with and the abuse she could put on a bouquet. That's what you have to plan for with flowers on horses. They're not used to having all these shiny, fluffy, glittery, streamy things all over them, and they get a little excited. Plus there's a parade, and people are clapping, and bands are playing. So anything we can do to make them look good but not freak them out is even better. So do we have anybody saying hi from any place wonderful yet?
I am still catching up. So far though, I see on Facebook, I see Renee and David, Lori, Arthur, Gayla, Donna, Diana, and Janet, but they're still coming in. So hold on.
Well, good.
Over here on YouTube, we've got teacher Carolyn with us.
Hey, Carolyn.
Susie and Caledonia are both with you on. And then we've got Pearl, Leslie, Sarah, Wayne, Salma, Andrea. So it's going to be a busy time over here on YouTube, too.
All right. Well, good. Well, as I said in the teaser, saddle up because we're going to have some fun.
Janet's just horsing around with you.
Nice, Jan. I anticipate lots of horse puns today, so bring them on. I'm ready for you. So a few things that I do want to show you and cover today are flowers for the bridle, and I brought a couple examples of bridles with me today. This one is a Western style, has the beautiful bejeweled concha on it, has a nose strap, has the side. This is the cheek area right here, so if I were to put it on, you're going to love this one. If I were the horse and my ears were poking out the top, that's how that would fit.
That's pretty glitzy. It does look like you.
It does. I was so excited. And a huge shout out to my friend Larissa Marini, who dropped off her bridle and also a hat for me to use today. She is a past princess on the Clark County Fair Court here in Vancouver, or across the river in Vancouver, Washington. But something to think about when you're doing this, flowers on a bridle, is the horse. It seems obvious, but if it's not your horse, say in my instance, I'm doing flowers for a fair court, and every year it's different girls, different horses. So I'm starting from scratch every year. I want to talk to the girls and meet their horses before the day of the parade, if I'm actually going to be putting the flowers on the horse, because I want to know, is the horse a biter? Is the horse head shy? Does he not like having things near his ears or his eyes? Most of them don't, and it can be very distracting for them because they're not used to having something poking out and waving at them right here. So those are things to ask the owner of the horse before you start designing, because again, you don't want a very freaked out 1,000-pound horse in the middle of a parade route. It's not a pretty scene. We'll come back to that particular story. But in this case, we're going right back to basics. I mean, basic floral design with a line corsage. So I've prepped a few of my flowers already, and I've wired and taped them. And I know some of you are going, oh my gosh, wire and tape, really, Michelle? Well, guess what? It's the best mechanic. And the nice thing about if you take basic and advanced at our school is we teach you those basics. Yeah, they're old school, Michelle, I know. But you have to have those in your toolbox because there are times when you need them. And this is one of those. Gluing is wonderful, and I do glue in flowers, but I want that base to be wired and taped because I have stability and I also have malleability. I can bend and shape the flowers how I want them to be. So what I'm going to do is assemble basically a very small, compact boutonniere. And like I said, I've pre-wired and taped I have some beautiful orange spray roses and a little miniature yellow carnation and a little bit of baby's breath. Anybody else out there that we need to say hi to while I'm putting this together?
Well, there's a little bit of confusion, which is kind of fun. Alana thought you were doing bridal, B-R-I-D-A-L, not bridal, B-R-I-D-L-E.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have so many tulips. They are coming in, which is pretty grand. Then we have Janet, Melinda, Margaret, Therese, Rhonda, Elaine, Lilia. So, and they're still coming in. So
excellent.
Welcome to you all.
Yes. So excellent, Alana. Clarification. It is bridle for a horse, not bridle for a woman. Yeah, different spelling.
And then over here,
yes, what do we have?
Facebook, and they're still, I haven't caught up yet, they're still coming. But we have Beatrice, which we spoke on the phone today earlier. Hi, Beatrice. And Scott. We have both Sharons, Trish, Tammy, who put her horse icon in.
Good.
And Nikki, thank you for your order. Therese, Rochelle, who just completed basic, and Heather, Kim, Kate, Nancy, who just completed the basic challenge, Denise, Sandy Bacon, who now says hello from New York.
Wow, world traveler.
She relocated to be with her grandbabies.
Oh, way to go, Grandma. Nice job.
Yeah.
And Diana, Natasha, Alana, and Elisa, who also just completed basic and went straight into advanced.
Well, excellent. Well, congratulations to those of you who've graduated and to those of you who are moving on into the next course. You will love advanced. If you liked basic, you will love advanced because you get to take all of those bits of theory and the elements and principles and rather do as we say and do as we tell you to do. You get to use that knowledge and be creative for yourself. Within some guidelines, we have some things we'd like you to create, but it's a lot more freedom and you're gonna love it. Love it, just gonna love it. And I'll check into the platform and see how y'all are doing.
What gauge wire are you using?
Yes, so on the wiring and taping, I used in this case I used a 24 gauge wire because that's what I had handy here. For the smaller flowers like this, 24 to 22 would be fine. If I had a larger flower, I might go as high as a 20, but that'd be about it for the wiring and taping portion. So what I've done here is created just this little boutonniere, or tiny corsage, depending on how you want to look at that. And then what I want to do is attach it to the bridle itself. So if you're looking at it this way, you'd be looking at the side of the horse with the ears coming up through here. And you'd want to attach it maybe at the buckle, maybe up here right below the ear. Again, that's going to depend on that particular horse, if it's a single horse. And if it's a court, if you have multiple horses that are all getting the same kind of floral decoration, they have to match. So you have to go with the lowest common denominator. If one horse is head shy or doesn't like anything up above his eyes, then you need to move it down onto the cheek plate a little lower here by the buckle. And it has to be that way for everybody. Now, how are you going to get that on there, Michelle? That's the next question. Zip ties or cable ties, depending on how you want to think about that. This is just a pack from Home Depot. These happen to be the white ones because I grabbed them out of my toolbox, but they come in colors. Yes, they come in yellow and hot pink and blue and orange, but they also come in dark brown, light brown, black, and green. Now, I don't know of any green horses, but brown, black, white, dark brown, definitely. And what that does is it blends in with the tack, the brown of the leather, if it's brown or if it's black leather, or with the horse as well. You really want to think about the mechanics. We always talk about don't let your mechanics show. No naked wires, no exposed mechanics. Same applies here. We want to make sure that it looks as professional as possible. So what I'll do with this, and I will tell you, this is much easier when it's on the horse because the bridle stands up on its own. But I will feed that little baby zip tie through the center of my boutonniere. And then I can attach it. We'll assume that this guy is a little head shy. And we'll put it down at the buckle. So I'm just feeding that zip tie, and I'll show you here in just a second, through both sides of the buckle. And then I'll just close the zip tie up and then trim it off. Before I trim it off, I do want to make sure I slide that little sharp nubby edge off to one side or the other, because if it stays on the bottom, yes, it's hidden, but it's also poking that horse in the cheek, and that is not going to fare well down the road. That will not be a happy horse or a happy rider at that point.
I have a question.
Sure.
Well, actually, John has a question.
Okay.
Is there anything not good, I guess flower-wise, to not put on a horse?
Excellent question. So John wanted to know, are there any not so good flowers to use? Yes. So I'll tell you a funny story. So we have some beautiful green button palms back here, chrysanthemums, little Kermits probably, and they're beautiful. Awesome color, one of my favorites, love, love, love them. As you know, if they aren't just perfectly hydrated and super fresh, they can kind of explode on you as you're working with them. And I used them one year on the bridal flowers and the main flowers for the court. It was a 2-person court that year. And got all of the flowers on the horses, all done. 5 minutes to judging, which means it's 5 minutes to 7 in the morning. And the princess's horse walked over. This was a giant horse. I mean giant, I don't mean Clydesdale, but the horse, as I'm putting the flowers on the horse's tail, I'm looking at the tail right here. He was huge, ginormous dappled gray. He walked over, planted all 4 feet, and shook like a wet dog. It was confetti of little green button palms everywhere. So, yes, flowers not to use. Anything that could shatter, explode, have the head pop off. Lilies, I would say no. Just say no to lilies. They're beautiful, but say no. Looking around what we have here, I'll come back to these, but most everything else that we're looking at would be okay. Anything that requires a lot of water can be tricky. Hydrangeas can be tricky, so you want to make sure they're super, super hydrated. If your budget allows, tropicals are fantastic. They're sturdy, they're showy, and they really don't need a whole lot of love and attention or water. Things like anthuriums or ginger. Orchids are lovely. Orchids are heavy, so there's a trade-off there. So excellent question on the types of flowers. Marisa, yes?
I have a couple people wanting to know, do you actually design on the horse?
I mean, do I get on the horse and
yeah.
play with flowers?
I just thought that too.
No, yeah.
Probably do design with, what?
So, do I design on the horse? Yes and no. It depends on that particular horse or that particular court. Most of the time, I have all of the pieces completed when I arrive at the parade. So the big parade here in our area is the Portland Rose Festival Grand Floral Parade. And the judging starts at 7 a.m. The parade itself starts at 9. And I arrive at the parade form-up at 5 with all the flowers for the horses. And what I do, I'll jump ahead a little bit to show you this so you can kind of see how this all gets there. But I design all of the flowers in advance, but I do take additional flowers and foliage because I do need to adjust things sometimes. Just like when you make an altar bouquet or an arch piece that you didn't design actually on the arch, you get there and you're like, oh, well, I need a little more foliage here. It just needs something to hide that right there. Same with the horses. I want to make sure that they are picture perfect when it's time to go to the judging, because once they go to the judging, we can't do anything else. Yes, Marisa?
So on that note, Diane O, because there's two Dianes commenting, Diane O wants to know if you make the boutonnieres ahead of time or the day of.
Okay, so let's come back to that question in just a second.
Okay.
So, talking...
I'm gonna throw one out there because it kind of goes on this too. Melinda wants to know if they bring you the bridle ahead of time or if you get the flowers there and the bridle's already on the horse.
Okay, so you guys are all on the same track, so that's awesome. So, I design all the flowers beforehand. I give them the option of coming and picking them up the night before or the morning of if they so choose, but I will also go and deliver the flowers to the parade route and help them put them on the horses. Twofold. One, because they have a very short time frame in which to get everything done, clean, tidy into the parade start for judging. And two, because I like horses and it's a really good excuse to go play with pretty animals. So there's that. So yes, they could bring me the bridle the night before. However, most of the time they have all of their tack and equipment with them and their horses when they arrive at the parade. So what I take them is, and this, I apologize, it's grody and not clean, but this is reality and this is exactly what I use. So this is just a tote. You can get them anywhere. It's a plastic tote, has a lid on it. I have some shelf grippy in the bottom. And what I do is lay all of the boutonnieres that I just made, all of the flowers for the bridle, all of the flowers for the court themselves, if they're wearing wristlets or hat bands, if I have tail flowers, if I have flowers to go in the mane, down their neck, everything gets laid in this. And then the flower pack, which we'll talk about in a bit, fits on top of what I lovingly call my butt bucket. So this replicates the rear end of a horse, and the flowers that sit on the horse's rump behind the saddle go on here and they're transported. Each horse has their own setup just like that, their own kit, and it makes it really easy for me to put them on the horse or for the owner of the horse to do that. And that answered one question, but then there was somebody else's question about...
Well, and then Margaret wanted to know about the bridle, but you sort of answered that. And James, this is for you. That's why we have a butt bucket. We couldn't have a horse in the studio, so we have a butt bucket instead.
We have a butt bucket,
So
yeah.
that's for you, James.
Okay, so I was not gonna say this, but Lori's asking, and since we're talking about butts and butt buckets, have you ever had a horse go on a tailpiece?
I have had horses relieve themselves, not on the flowers, because if you think about how a horse is constructed, their tail is back here, and the flowers are going right at that juncture where the tail really starts to get thick. And speaking of the tail, the construction for those flowers would be identical to what I just did for the cheek plate. It's a wired and taped corsage, a little bigger. This would be boutonniere size, so think a corsage. And again, zip ties. Most of the time, the courts have braided in some manner, either a fishtail braid or a French braid, just like you do on long hair. They've braided those tails, and then we'll just zip tie with a compatible color zip tie, brown or tan or black, the flowers into the tail. The only difference on those is with the boutonniere that I just did for the cheek. The bow is on the bottom. So it's very much a traditional corsage or boutonniere. If I'm doing flowers on the tail or on the breastplate, which is the harness that comes across their chest, kind of comes around their legs and up, kind of like a yoke, like an overall yoke almost. If you attach flowers there, what you want to think about is the fact that you want the taper to hang down, like a teardrop bouquet or a cascade bridal bouquet. So instead of putting a bow with streamers at the end when I design those, I put that bow with the streamers. Don't you just love the glitter ribbon?
I do.
It's my favorite. I love glitter. What you want to do is put that bow with the streamers at the top when you begin constructing your corsage to put on the tail, because if it's on the point, so there's my ribbon with my streamers. So I'll start with this, and then I would lay in this case, the spray rose, the miniature carnation, maybe a standard rose, maybe a larger rose or a standard carnation, thinking about sequencing and graduating that scale in the flower as I build down the corsage, but up the tail. Then this lets the streamers hang down, and then you zip tie that completed piece into that woven tail, and it's very secure. You think those horses are swishing those tails, dancing, flowers and ribbons everywhere. It's very showy, but you also want to make sure it's very secure. So that's the tip on that, is just do it in reverse. Yes, Leanne?
So Ruth wants to know if horses have aversions to different scents. Do you have to be worried about fragrance? And Garrett wants to know if you take into account the color of the horse when you do your designing, or if it's more based upon the court.
Okay, so first question was aversion of scent to the horses for the flowers. Not so much. The only thing that I've noticed that would have a strong fragrance, strong enough that it would be an issue, would be maybe stock or lilies, neither of which I would really recommend. Lilies are too fragile. And stock, if you were using it on the flower pack, the big saddle arrangement that sits behind the girl, it's far enough away it wouldn't be an issue for them. I don't know that horses have scent allergies, but I'll add that to my list of questions to ask for the courts next year. And then the other question was, color. Right. Garrett wanted to know about color. So, interesting question. Depending on the parade criteria, depending on the criteria established for equestrian entries, they may judge a court on how well the horses match each other. Are they all brown? Are they all black? Or they may judge based on the tack, the color of the bridle that they're using. Is the bridle, do all the girls have black bridles and the same kind of sparkly adornments on it? So they're judged on that. In my case, if I'm trying to coordinate flowers, what I'm looking at is the tack. So the bridle, the saddle, if they have something called a serape that goes behind the saddle, it's long, it drapes down, and it usually says Queen Marisa 2020, that kind of thing on it. Yeah, there you go. You just been made a rodeo queen. So I'm more concerned with matching or coordinating with the tack and whatever the girls are wearing. So the way I approach that is I want to know what the colors are that the court is wearing. If you saw any of the photos that we posted earlier, there was a turquoise, it was turquoise shirts and tack with yellow flowers, and this bright, ever so sparkly, turquoisey blue. Do they actually call it turquoise? They do call it turquoise. Party time, in fact. Flowers don't come in that color, so I found a ribbon that matched the color of their shirts. And so last week, Leanne did color theory, right? So if you go to your color wheel, and I looked at, here's that kind of turquoisey blue range of colors here. If I can't match that, okay? So if I go and contrast with it, complement it, a complementary color, I'd be going to yellow, orange, or orange. And in this case, I'm looking at an extended analogous palette. I go from burgundy reds to oranges to yellow, orange, over to true yellow, to a lighter tint of yellow with some of the carnations. So I'm still within that range of have some complementary color, but then I also have that analogous palette that's across from it. My goal as the florist for a court is to get them television time. If it's a filmed parade like the Portland Grand Floral Parade, I want the court to stand out. I can't help them with controlling their horses. I can't help them with their equestrian knowledge. I can't help them with that. But if they are on point with their knowledge of whatever fair or rodeo they represent, if the horses are beautifully groomed, well behaved, then what I do for them can push them over and hopefully get them a win in their category. When I say I want to get them TV time, what I want to do is make them so appealing on camera that the cameraman follows them for a longer period of time. The longer they're on camera, the longer the announcers are talking about that court and the fair that they represent or the rodeo that they represent. The longer they do that, the more advertising and promotion that they're getting for their appearance in that parade, which makes the rodeo or the court advisors or the fair very, very happy. So that's the marketing background coming into the flowers and the color selection. I know it seemed like a really long way to get to your answer, Garrett, but I'm less concerned about what the horse color is and more concerned about what the girls wear. That's one reason I love the sparkly ribbons, the glittered ribbons. They are extremely showy on camera, and that's what I want. I want that cameraman to say, oh, look at the pretty girls on the pretty horses, and then follow them, because as long as that camera's on it, those announcers are talking about that fair and that activity and so forth, and ultimately that's the goal, because it takes more than just pretty flowers on pretty horses to win the awards. They put a lot of work in on the front end with their animals, but I can help them push that over the edge a little bit sometimes. All right, so we talked about head to tail. We talked about bridal flowers, a small corsage or boutonniere. You're going to want to zip tie those onto the cheek plates. And then on the tail feathers, tail flowers, same concept, doing a larger corsage type piece, but inverting where I put the streamers and the bow. I want to lead with that in my construction and then build up to the finish point, which usually has a larger flower. I still put a bow there, but just no streamers. I just want to finish that off. So then if I move on to the thing everybody wants to know about.
Yes, they're waiting.
The butt flowers.
Yeah.
I know.
But they're asking about what kind of flowers and how do you do it and have I missed it, so.
All right. I didn't put it at the beginning because if you were running late, I didn't want you to miss it. So, butt flowers is what we lovingly call them.
Do you actually get someone to call you and hey, I need butt flowers?
Not within the horsey world, no. People who don't know will usually ask for butt flowers, but at any rate, it's called a flower pack, and it sits behind the saddle on the horse. So to create that, what you want to work with is a casket saddle. So the most rigid one that you can find, as tempting as it would be to get the ones that are the styrofoamy polystyrene, they're like a foam cooler and they already have the foam on it and the cage and the they're all attached in together. Don't do that because that's glued, and you really, really want your mechanics to be super secure and spot on. So I'm going to walk you through that process right now.
While you're grabbing things, I don't know if you were going to touch on this, but Elisa has a really great question. She wants to know if these packs can be worn on English and Western saddles, or are they typically designed for the Western type saddle?
Good question. So they are typically they're typically designed for the Western saddle, yes. Having said that, if you had a horse that was using English, you don't have a few of the extra things. You don't have as much material behind the seat on the saddle. You don't have a horn, which is that little handle that pops up on a Western saddle. So it's harder to put flowers in front of the rider on an English kit. I have an English bridle with me, and they tend to be far more subdued than the Western ones and a little simpler. So this one doesn't have the bit on it, so it's actually just a headstall. But this would go over the horse's nose, and where my hand here would be the ears. So you still have buckles, so you could attach there. If the horse is not averse to having something by its ears, this makes a wonderful place to make like a little headband and attach here. It looks fantastic, especially if the horse has short trimmed bangs, like a blunt cut on the bangs. It looks so sharp.
So now the horse has to have a haircut too?
The horse has to have, yeah, the horses, you know, that's funny you say that, because the horses have to have as much as, if not more, grooming than the girls themselves. They actually do a white glove test at the Portland Parade on the horses, and that's exactly what it sounds like. There is one person in the judging court that comes through with white fabric gloves, and she starts at the head of the horse, goes all the way to the tail, runs the legs, and then checks, now I'm covered in glitter, checks to see that the horses are completely clean. They get so many baths in that 24 hours before a parade. It's amazing. They smell amazing. They don't have any smell at all, actually. By that time, they're just super clean.
So Pearl XOXO is having a conversation here with Jennifer, and they think that it would be so cool to include battery-packed fairy lights in these.
You know, that would be very cool for an evening parade. Again, going back to Portland, we have a nighttime parade prior to the Grand Floral that's called the Starlight Parade, and you are required to be illuminated for that. And with the little fairy lights and so forth, that would be a fantastic way to enhance whatever else they have going on. Now, in the Grand Floral Parade, all the flowers must be fresh. They must be real flowers. You cannot have silk flowers. Dried is acceptable, but you cannot have artificial flowers. No permanent botanicals are allowed. Marisa, did you have a question over there?
I have kind of lots, but
one at a time. I can't keep track of more than one at a time.
But first, Bill, your induction buddy says hi.
Hey, Bill.
And so going back, Diane D commented back on your first demonstration that she was going to try a miniature version on her dog's vest. And then, let's see, Arthur actually wants to know if the horses ever eat the flowers.
Yeah, funny story. So going back to the dog, yes, all of these mechanics that I'm talking about work for, so you don't have a rodeo queen or a court to deal with, but you have a stylized photo shoot, or you have a wedding. Llamas, hugely popular. Horses are rented out for the photo of the bride with the gorgeous floral halo and wreath draped around the horse's neck. Cows, I've seen cows with the most adorable head wreaths on. So all of these things, yeah, don't get hung up on the horse. Any of the animals that'll slow down long enough so you can do that are perfectly fine. Eating the flowers. Yeah, I've had them eat the flowers, and that's when we got very particular about where we set the flowers. It only happened once. It's one of those things, it only happens to you once. You never do it a second time. All right, so what I've done here is prepared my saddle with, my casket saddle, in this case, with foam and floral netting, and wired it in place. And that's where that butt bucket's gonna come in right now. So I'm gonna bring that back around here.
Michelle?
Yeah.
Joe wants to know if it's hard to remove the flowers from the horse, especially the tail.
No, actually it's really quite easy because it's zip tied either into their tail or onto the bridle. You can just go in with a good pair of shears or a wire cutter and just snip that little bit of plastic off, and they come out quite easily. the saddle pack, the flower pack. So pretend that this is the head of the horse. Sorry, I'm backwards. The head of the horse, and this would be the tail of the horse. This right here is very much a replica of how the back of the seat comes up, and I want to make sure that that casket saddle is sitting up snug. If you have seen girls on horses in parades, they've got, you know, long curled hair sprayed, it's not going anywhere, and then these giant flowers coming up, basically like the backrest of a chair. It's right behind them. Take into consideration the fact they have long hair, so you don't want the flowers so tall that it's poking up into their hair and it's getting caught, either tearing the flowers out, which would be bad, or just messing up their hair. You don't want that. The mechanics of keeping this on the horse and on the saddle, zip ties. They're like the most amazing thing ever. On the back of a Western saddle, there are typically a couple little rings, metal rings. So then you can take your zip tie and feed through. If these have holes on it, great. If these don't have holes, take a drill and add holes to the plastic casket saddle. That way you can zip tie it right onto the back of the saddle itself, the horse's saddle. And that provides really good stability. You'll notice on my bucket, I have a piece of, it's like shelf liner, but it's the grippy foamy kind, like you put under glassware. That helps keep this from sliding on the bucket. And quite often I will take a piece with me also to the parade to set on the horse, or I can even spray mount it with 3M spray glue to the back of this, which just gives it a little more grip to hold it in place. Leanne, you have a question?
Nicole wants to know if you would design the same if you were doing for a horse race award as opposed to a parade royalty court.
Okay, so good question. Not typically. The horse race flowers are typically done after the race. So what you see most commonly is a garland that would go in front of the jockey's saddle at the base of the horse's neck. So think just a garland like we would make anytime that would drape across the front. So your standard garland construction there. If you're thinking like Kentucky Derby or the Preakness or the Triple Crown, the Belmont Stakes, the Preakness, and the Kentucky Derby, those are blankets. Those are a different construction, and they are an art form unto themselves. I have not made one. Kentucky Derby is on my bucket list. And interesting fact on that, Kroger has been the one that has sponsored it in recent years. You basically get in line to help assemble it and put the flowers on that particular blanket for the winner of the Kentucky Derby. For the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes, they're done by florists. The Preakness, I'm probably going to get this wrong. Preakness, I believe, is in Maryland. No, maybe it's Belmont. Anyhow, the one that's in Maryland, they use silk flowers because the flower of Maryland is a black-eyed Susan, and they're not blooming when they do the race in June, so they're made of silk. You can have that thing done 6 months in advance. For the Preakness, it is white carnations, which has no affiliation with the state as far as a state flower, but those are sewn onto a green velvet cape, if you will, shawl, it's called a blanket, and then also backed with a fabric so that it's very soft against the horse. Same way with the Kentucky Derby, it's the roses are pierced with a wire, fed through this fabric and secured, and then it's backed with another fabric so that it's very soft. That is an undertaking of undertakings. They take about 5 or 6 hours to complete, just the one for the winner of that race. So maybe sometime I'll get down there to do it and bring back some cool ideas for that. So mechanics on this, your standard casket saddle assembly, drill holes in the plastic saddle itself if it doesn't already have it, so that you can then zip tie it to the rider's saddle itself. And then your construction, as far as the bouquet itself, is very much like you would do in a traditional casket saddle. You want to think about, let me grab some foliage over here. You want to think about your angle of insertion. A casket is curved, well, so is a horse's back end. And the reason I use this bucket, not just to transport it easily, but it also replicates the curve of that horse's hindquarters. And I want to think about that as I do my placement. I want to make sure I'm inserting the foliage and the flowers so it follows the curve of this bucket. That way, when this sits on the horse, it drapes over the horse's hindquarters and doesn't poke out straight like this and look really strange. Plus, then you would see the saddle, which would be a major no-no. Leanne, questions?
Jennifer is just made a comment. She is loving what you're doing. She makes jewelry and costumes for her horse.
Oh.
And she was talking about she created a pearl unicorn horn set on velvet, surrounded with flowers, and then made attachments to go in the stall as well. So it sounds like she does a lot of horse stuff.
Holy cow, girl.
I know.
That's a lot of horsey stuff. I'm not going to build one for you today because the size of the saddle or the bucket is overwhelming the screen, but I want to talk you through some of the different mechanics of the flowers. Everything has to be wired. Everything has to be wired. And when I say wired, I mean an 18 or a 16 gauge wire, like rebar. You want to make sure that flower, grab a rose. You want to make sure that the flower stays intact and upright. If it's 110 degrees like it is in the studio today, as you're watching me sweat away 10 pounds here, this flower is going to be wilted by the end of that parade, bar none. It's been designed for over a day. It's been on a horse in the sun for 3 hours, and then post-parade activities, it's going to be wilty, I can guarantee you. But it doesn't have to be limp or saggy. That's where these wires come in. If you just take your wire, pierce the calyx, in this case of the rose, and then wind down the stem. I know you're thinking, Michelle, it's not taped. What are you doing? It's fine. Then even if this flower wilts, or if for some reason the head gets snapped off the stem, it's not going to, it can't go anywhere. It's wired. And this was an 18 gauge wire that I used. The 16 is even sturdier. Yes, it should be taped for proper mechanics, but it will not be visible. Does it shorten the life of the flower? Yes, it does. This is an event. This is not flowers that I would send to someone's home. I would never do this in a delivery arrangement of a happy birthday bouquet. But this is a flower for an event. The event is the judging to the end of the parade. I need it to look great during that time. So anything I can do to make that happen is best. Story about wiring flowers. 3 years ago, beautiful, beautiful court. Horses were matched. The queen's horse was different than the two girls. They looked amazing. They took an award. It was awesome. Everybody was happy. But right after the judging, as they headed to the parade format, the queen's horse stepped on our a light rail track here, which is an electrified train. Horses have metal shoes on their feet. Horseshoes are metal. And the horse contacted two of them at the same time, and you guessed it, got a shock. You want to see a bucking bronco with a rodeo queen on the back? That's what happened. Poor thing came down and did it again. Shocked itself twice and then went on a bucking spree. This was on the horse. The horse bucked. This went off the horse. And of course it landed on the flowers. I didn't know this till after the parade, which is good because I would have had a heart attack at the time. All of the flowers were wired. The delphinium, the hydrangeas, the roses, the carnations, everything was wired like this. They calmed the horse down. They picked the pack up off the ground. They straightened all the flowers up on the wires, fluffed the heads a little bit, zip tied it back on, and continued on with the parade. That's why you wire. That's why you wire. So wiring all of your material is critical. As I put each stem into the foam,
So with all these mechanics and all the wiring,
Mm-hmm.
do you have a guesstimate as to how long it takes you to create one of these? Melinda wants to know just how long would you plan on making one of these?
One of these, yeah. So the assembly of one pack is about an hour and 10 minutes if it's not a ginormous one. I usually allow an hour and a half because I've had to wire everything before I start placing it in. And then as I go to place it, and I still want a nice cut on my stems. I still want them to drink as best as possible. And I put that into the foam. I want to go down as far as I can into the foam. I want good security. And then I'm going to put a little blob of Oasis floral adhesive around that stem. Every stem. Now, if you know how far in you're going to go, you could just put a little smear of it on the stem itself. Put a little smear of it, and then when you insert the stem in, it's going to rub up the stem and secure. The Oasis adhesive will adhere to wet foam, which is great. So each stem is wired and glued in. Then when I'm done, I come back with Floral. We use this in bouquets to help secure them if we've made a bouquet in a holder. This is the extra super hold unscented Aquanet of a casket saddle for horses. This not only will help seal in any moisture that is in the foam, it's also going to make a glued covering over the foam that then is going to seal all of those flowers and bits of foliage and so forth into that saddle. Again, you don't want a twitchy horse that's just bouncing around and then suddenly all of these things are falling out, because once they've done the judging, you can't go back and help them. Marisa, did you have a question?
Yeah. Lynn has a great question, and I'm sorry if you already went over this, and if I missed it, because I want to know too. Do you secure the back end of that saddle?
No, not typically. There's usually nothing back here to attach to. Now, having said that, I mentioned a serape, and that is like a narrow blanket that sometimes sits behind the saddle on the horse, and it quite often has the court information on it. So in my case, the Clark County Fair Court, Princess Marisa, it would say on that. So you just got demoted. Sorry, you're a queen now, you're a princess. Sorry.
Put away the tiara.
Yes. So in that case, depending on how that serape is constructed, if it's designed for parades, there may be a D-ring or an O-ring at the back where you could secure it. But most of the time it's just secured up front behind the saddle seat itself. So that's why all of this other construction really has got to be rock solid, because you really only have 2 attachment points on that. I know it sounds weird, but the horse's backs are a little broader than this bucket, so it does sit quite nicely. But the nice thing again about the curvature of this bucket is it really lets me design so the flowers hug it. So when it goes on the horse, those flowers and foliages really hug that hindquarter on the horse itself.
So Ruth figures you're doing extreme flower arranging.
Pretty much, yeah. It's yeah. The very first year I did it, I was really excited and it was a lot of fun. And as I finished the parade finished rather, and the setup, and I talked to the court afterwards, I jotted notes, and I do this now all the time. As soon as I finish a parade season, I have a sheet that says what I learned this year. Because every year I learned something new. The first year was spider moms or button palms. This may not be my best choice, but sometimes you just can't get around using a big flower like a mum. I love mums. They're very showy, and they give you that big pop of color. You want big roses, big head, big South American ones are fabulous because they're so much larger. Things like spray roses, they're beautiful and they're great for the queen or the princesses to have on their hat bands, or for the horses on cheek flowers and so forth. But on that pack, you really want big statement flowers. And I do love mums, and I'll give you a couple tips for working with them that I figured out after that first year. Super fresh, super hydrated. That should go without saying for any of them. But go back to the adhesive bucket. the Super 77 spray glue from 3M. Love this stuff. It works a couple different ways. I can spray, I'm not going to do it in here because Leanne will kill me. I can spray the backs of the mums. There's a product called Pedal Proofer that you could do that with as well. I just buy this by the case because it's easier and I'm using it in other applications. But if I spray the back of the mums, that's going to seal all those little pedal attachments into the calyx so that they don't get that droop like we see on spider mums a lot, that those lower petals start to droop. That glues them together, so even if they want to fall out, they can't. And because, you know, football mum just wasn't big enough and fabulous on its own, it needs glitter. Can you all see the glitter? I love glitter. Glitter's awesome. Brought glitter. But easy thing to do to get glitter on the flowers. If you have gotten a box of gardenias, those boxes are waxed, so the glitter will slide around in it. I take the lid of the box and my glitter and just sprinkle it in the box, pretty healthy layer of it. Then if I need to glitter flowers, I can spray the face of the flower and then just dip it and roll it around in the glitter, tap that off a little bit, and then all the faces of the flowers are glittered, or half of the rose or half of the mum. Spider mums look fantastic done that way if you just do the tips of them. So spray the tips and then just kind of roll them around in the glitter. They look like those fireworks explosions on the 4th of July. So if it's a 4th of July parade, that's a great way to get some sparkle and shine and make them look like fireworks. Marisa, did you have a question?
Oh, I have lots of, just people are loving this. Cheryl Smith, who is a past graduate of ours,
yes,
in the classroom, she wants to get in touch with you to pick your brain. She did have her first order for the Harney County Queen, but it got canceled.
Oh no!
But she does want to call you and pick your brain. And then Jennifer McDonald, who is also a FDI graduate.
Yes, Jen.
Yeah, and she says if you ever need an assistant, she would love to help.
All right, good to know. Well, you need to get a lot of sleep because we pack up and leave the house at 4 to get there by 5. It's an early morning and a very long day, but it's super worth it. So the other design I wanted to talk about was does dual purpose. It's for their hat, the back of the hat, and also for the horse's ankles, if you will, the hock area.
Your timing is good. Nicole just said, what do we do on hats?
Yes. So, again, my friend Larissa, not Marisa, Larissa loaned me one of her hats, and I want to make sure I don't get glitter on it because then I could really be in trouble. If you think about the courts, especially in this case, not a Western court, not so much people writing English with the helmet style hat. You've got the front of the hat with the crown of the hat, and then typically there is a crown, a ginormous Miss Universe looking silver and gold detailed crown that fits on their hat. They've worked hard for those. They don't want flowers blocking that. They want that bling showing. So the flowers go on the backside. So what you want to think about then, and here's another question to jot to the owner of the horse or the princess or the queen riding the horse, is you need to know the measurement from the end of the crown on one side around the back to the end of the crown on the other side, because the flowers are going to attach to the ends of the crown and decorate the back of the hat. That's probably the most common photograph of horses in parades, is on the side is one, but from the back. Flowers in the tail, the big flower pack, and then the girls, the back of the hats with their reverse hat band on it.
So if Susie in Caledonia, if you will put the link in to Michelle's slideshow, there's some of those pictures. So
Yes.
you can see that.
Absolutely. So your construction on that is going right back to your basic studies. It's learning to make a halo. We did it in class with baby's breath, but that technique of wiring and taping the halo, and in this instance, the girls are far less hard on the flowers than the horses are. So you could do a glued one, and the glue does hold exceptionally well. I just find, again, I have more control when I've wired and taped the construction. And you can make it all foliage, you can make it foliage and flowers, however you want to do that. And then they just attach those on site when they're ready to go to the form-up area for judging. That same mechanic of making that garland, halo, little piece is what you would do for the construction around the hooves. Again, a measurement is handy. Horses' ankles are very delicate, very dainty, given the size of the animal. They're much smaller than you would think they are. A wristlet, a comfortably sized wristlet with a little bit of room on a person is about the right size. But again, ask them to give you the measurement of the horse, each of the horses, because horses, like people, are different sizes, and some of us have thankles and some of us don't. And the horses may have boots on, not like cowboy boots, but more like a shin guard that they wear in the parades. It helps take some of the shock of walking on the asphalt, and that fits right down close to the foot, and that makes it wider around. It makes it wider around to put the horse wristlet on, if you will. So that's another measurement. The back of the hat from crown to crown and around the horse's ankles, especially if they have boots. Then you make sure that you've made it large enough. Marisa, do you have a question?
Yes, actually, it's a question from me.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
I want to know.
Yes.
Okay, like, did someone show you how to do all this stuff, or were you able to, did you, all the mechanics and techniques that you learned throughout your floral design career, did you apply it and then figure it out?
You know,
And
the
then,
basic floral design.
well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is it because you know how to do this stuff, and you're like, well, this is how they do it, and when you go to these parades, can you tell when someone maybe didn't take a basic floral design class?
Yes, so great question, Marisa. Yes, I keep referencing back to basic floral design, and these are basic techniques. The applications are unusual, but the techniques and the skills that I have used for years and years and years are the best way to do it in most cases. If I'm at a parade and I see flowers that aren't staying together, you can usually tell who is a trained florist that not only has the skill, but has the knowledge and the awareness of the tools available to them. A casket saddle, floral netting, different kinds of wire. This isn't a floral product, but we use it. Oasis floral adhesive, yeah, that's a game changer for us. Absolutely a game changer. So, do you need the training? No, but can I tell whether you've had it if I'm looking at parade flowers and they're coming apart? Probably, yeah, I can.
Tammy wants to know, she's absolutely loving this class, or this live. She wants to know if you've ever arranged for the flowers at jumps.
I have not. If you're talking about the floral displays at like a dressage or a hunter jumper competition, I have not. I would love that. My next door neighbor rides English, and she also does mounted archery, so I'm going to look into that because those horses are pretty amazing. They don't have saddles. They're riding bareback. But I'm pretty sure I could still get flowers to stick on a horse. So I'm going to look into that. But I would absolutely love to design in that sense. I don't know that during the competition part that the horses themselves can have flowers on them. I haven't seen that. But my knowledge goes a little more to the Western world than it does to the English side. Miss Leanne.
So several comments are coming in as we're coming down to the end here. One that I want to just kind of go with a question on the pricing. We're not going to go into pricing today, but it would be definitely following back to your basic studies. And then the other one is, since they love this so much with the horses and such, is it possible to do one with flowers for a pageant? Which ironically, next week we are doing the flowers for the Queen's coronation.
Yeah.
So our live is going to be flowers for the princesses on a float and for the coronation and all of that. So we are doing a pageant next week.
You ask and you shall receive. See how it works around here? Just have to ask. So pricing. Yeah, I'm not going to go into a full, that's a whole discussion in and of itself. But in a nutshell, it would be comparable to wedding pricing. Your labor charge, your markup and your labor charge are going to be commensurate with a very high-end, high-service wedding, because if I asked a general student in a beginning floral class, said, here's what I need, and didn't give them any information, they wouldn't be able to construct this. So yeah, it's not cheap, let's put it that way. Fortunately, the courts I work with typically have a sponsor, so that makes it nice. I have sponsored the courts in the past, which is also good, because then if I'm sponsoring it, then I have a little more say in what goes on the horses. So there's that trade-off. But yeah, as far as pricing, think a very high-end wedding, high-service wedding, because that's what you're providing. They're paying for your knowledge and your service to them for this particular event. Do we have any other questions?
Sandy was a first timer today, so just a shout out for Sandy.
Yay, hi Sandy.
And wonderful, wonderful time. I just am so excited that you brought all your knowledge with us and shared it with us and all of that, so thank you.
Well, thanks for having me in. It's awesome to be back here at Floral Design Institute. It's been a long time, although I've been checking you all out and your studies online. I creep in there and look at your submissions. So, again, I'd like to thank Larissa, who loaned me her tack today. I want to thank you guys for spending an hour with us today. If you had questions that we didn't get answered, I'm going to go through the feed later and I'll answer them for you. If you get home tonight and go, oh, why didn't I ask this? Type that in there and I'll take a look at those too. I got to do something I love today. So hopefully this inspires you to go do something that you love. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.